Donald Trump has made a final decision. Ukraine will receive Tomahawk missiles from the United States of America. On October 11, Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke by phone amid rising Russian attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. And according to sources in the White House, President Trump and Zelensky specifically discussed options for Ukraine to acquire long-range Tomahawk missiles. Trump insists Ukraine buy these missiles. But as you can see, the question now is how Ukraine will get the Tomahawks, not whether it will get them at all. Also, according to Zelensky, during the conversation, the two leaders discussed Russia's strikes on Ukrainian energy infrastructure and the possibility of strengthening the air defense system. According to Zelensky, Trump suggested some good ideas. Well, another indication that Trump has made a final decision to supply Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles is the behavior of Russian President Vladimir Putin, who simply stated that Russia will strengthen its air defense system to defend itself from Tomahawk attacks in the future. I'm Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss this together. In particular, let's discuss what indicates that Trump has made a final decision regarding the Tomahawks. Several aspects here deserve attention. But before we begin, I want to remind you that this YouTube channel releases several news and analytical segments every day so that you stay up to date with absolutely all the news. That's why I recommend you subscribe to this channel. Please give it a like and write any comment you like. And friends, if you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation using the links and details in the description of this video. It says there, support Alexei Pechi's channel. Choose the format that's convenient for you. Any support from you would be appreciated. So, today, against the backdrop of intensified Russian attacks, President Volodymyr Zelensky had a conversation with United States President Donald Trump. During the conversation, the parties discussed Russia's strikes on Ukrainian energy infrastructure and ways to strengthen air defense. According to Zelensky, it was a very productive conversation. The Ukrainian president said that he congratulated Trump on his success and the agreement for the Middle East, which he actually secured. Quote, a strong result. If it's possible to stop the war in that region, then other wars can definitely be stopped as well, including this Russian war against Ukraine. Zelensky also said that during the conversation he informed Donald Trump about the Russian strikes on Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Here's another quote from Zelensky. I'm grateful for the willingness to support us. We discussed opportunities to strengthen our air defense and the agreements we are preparing in this regard. There are good options, strong ideas on how to really strengthen us. Well, all of this is interesting, especially after the statements about providing Ukraine with additional Patriot systems this summer. Let me remind you, then there was silence. And, this silence is very telling because something is hidden behind it. Well, for example, this week it became known that the European manufacturer Thales developed a compact mini-missile with a shrapnel warhead, and importantly, it is already being used in Ukraine to fight against attack drones. Like Shahed, everything happened quietly without unnecessary public discussion. According to the manufacturer, a new FZ-123 warhead was developed for the compact 70mm missile. It is filled with thousands of tiny steel balls that scatter in all directions when the nearly 1 kilogram charge explodes. It is noted that the blast radius is up to 25 meters in diameter. That's more than enough to destroy that aircraft. The Shahed drone itself. These pellets can hit a drone, by the way, even at a greater distance, because the missile works like a shotgun. The maximum range of the missile itself with this kind of warhead is up to 3 kilometers. That's why there's hope that we'll hear about decisions from Donald Trump and Zelensky regarding strengthening air defense. Well, actually, this weapon has already been used by the armed forces of Ukraine. In addition, after talking with Donald Trump, Zelensky emphasized that there needs to be a willingness from the Russians to engage in real diplomacy. And it is precisely through strength that this can be ensured, which is what Trump is striving for, Zelensky tells us. But as always, there are some statements made publicly, and there are some that remain behind the scenes. And now, sources in the White House told Axios that Trump and Zelensky discussed exactly the options for how Ukraine could receive Tomahawk missiles. Tomahawks would give Ukraine the ability to strike deep into Russian territory, including Moscow. Well, and this will help force the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin to sit down at the negotiating table. And now I suggest you recall two very telling episodes from this week that confirm the decision to supply Tomahawks has already been made. First, Monday, October 6th, Trump stated that he has basically already made the decision to sell long-range Tomahawk missiles to NATO countries and for their further deliveries to Ukraine. And at that time, Trump added that he wants to personally find out what Ukraine plans to do with these missiles and what targets the Tomahawks will strike. Are the armed forces of Ukraine confident they can bypass Russian air defenses, etc.? Today, Saturday, October 11, Trump is already asking Zelensky, what will you do with these missiles, how many will you buy, and so on, and so on. So everything looks extremely logical. Let me remind you, Zelensky asked Trump to provide him with Tomahawks during their meeting on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly last month. And at that time, Zelensky stated that Ukraine might not even have to use Tomahawk missiles, since just having them might be enough to force Putin to enter negotiations. American-made cruise missiles have a much greater range than the missiles Ukraine has received so far. And they are also better able to hit complex targets, such as ammunition depots and so on, than the drones Ukraine is currently using for long-range strikes. But there's also a second very important point here. It's Vladimir Putin's reaction. First, before Donald Trump's statement on Sunday, October 5 about his readiness to provide Ukraine with Tomahawks. Putin states that supplying Tomahawks to Ukraine would be, quote, a completely new, qualitatively new stage of escalation, which would completely ruin relations between the United States and Russia. But yesterday, October 10th, again, before Donald Trump's public announcement about the Tomahawks, and before today's call between Trump and Zelensky, Putin already definitely knew something. Because on October 10th, Putin already stated that Russia's response to a possible delivery of American Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine would be to strengthen Russia's air defense system. Putin is no longer dismissing this option. Instead, he says Russia must boost its air defenses to repel Tomahawk missile attacks. Finally, I'll add one more point. Starting Monday, a high-ranking Ukrainian delegation led by the head of Zelensky's administration, or more precisely, the head of President Zelensky's office, Yermak, and the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Yulia Sviridenko, will arrive in Washington to discuss security cooperation with the Americans. You know this also involves sanctions against Russia, so I'll stop here for now. Let's keep watching the situation. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's it for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.